to the Artie Lange Show. My next guest tonight is a really good friend of mine. I've been friends with him for a while. He's a quintessential rock DJ, man. An iconic guy for this generation. Kind of this generation, Scott Muni, only much cooler, in my opinion. He's got another book out, a follow-up to his first book. It's Eddie Trunk's Essential Hard Rock and Heavy Metal Volume 2. It's out officially tomorrow, and it's a good man. Eddie Trunk's here. What's up, buddy?
Good to see you, Artie. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, so tell us, take us through this, you know, how the first book came about and this one, the success of it, and what basically is the book.
The book, you know, I get a lot of books, as I'm sure you do. You've written books, of course, that are the size of dictionaries.
Right.
They're thick, giant books that take a month out of your life to have to read, and God knows where you find the time. At least me, I got a stack of a dozen of them sitting at home. With me, I make my books, they're kind of like toilet bowl books. They're perfect for reading a chapter as each trip to the John, you know?
Yeah,
it's really
cool.
easy.
It's like, you know.
So it's a mix of a lot of things. There's really cool photos, most of which have never been published. There's personal photos. There's stories with me and my 30-year interaction with these bands being in the music industry.
Just flipping through it, there's already great pictures. Like, you know, some of these guys don't even know who they are. They're just funny rock pictures.
Well, they're
from like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, they're from through all different decades and different periods, and there's a lot of cool candid shots in there. My playlists of my favorite songs, and then my overview.
You and Buck Cherry.
Yeah, it looks like I'm in the band, right? The only guy not skinny. So, I mean, it's a little mix of everything. My personal interaction, why I was involved with them, how I was involved, and why I like them. And the first book, which came out a couple years ago with the same publisher, had the same format, is basically handled 35 bands, and you got all the mega bands were in that. Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Kiss, Aerosmith, AC/DC, all in the first book. Right. And then we get to this volume 2, which comes out, as you said, everywhere you can get books tomorrow. And there's still some big name bands in here, but it's the next kind of level of the bands from the 70s and 80s. And people really loved the first book. I was turned on to the publisher by a friend of mine who was doing a photo book for them. They said they wanted to do something on hard rock and metal, so they reached out to me, and now we've got, you know, a second book about to come out.
Like you cover, with Buck Cherry, you got Doc and Lita Ford. All stuff, I'm interested in all that stuff, you know.
It's a wide variety of music within the confines of classic-leaning hard rock and metal. I mean, I was always about that sort of music going back to my youth. It's always been what I've been about. I do a TV show now that focuses on that. I do 2 radio shows a week still. It's always been about that music. But it's a wide net of that music that I'm into. Like in that book, you've got everything from Warrant to Marilyn Manson. You know, and I like everything. I like the whole gamut of that. So I've always been about that.
Yngwie Malmsteen. He was a guy in the 80s. You always heard
books.
Well, you can always say
he's an enormous metal fan.
No, I love it. It sounds like right up my alley.
And when he was on the Oakland Raiders, Metallica used to wear his jersey.
No, James did.
Oh, yeah?
It was like the biggest thrill of my life.
Yeah.
I think it's because I used to bleed a lot, and he kind of liked that.
Well, the Bay Area scene was huge for metal and still is. I mean, as far as bands from there. So, I mean, a lot of people don't realize Metallica, of course, was in my first book. And what a lot of people don't realize, though, is Metallica's roots are actually on Artie and I's turf in Jersey. That's where Metallica actually came onto the scene.
I wasn't into them in high school, but their really first hardcore fan base.
Jersey.
Actually, my high school, Union High, had a whole Metallica fan base, and my friend Doug Bear, his nickname's Yabby, he still has a cassette of seeing them New Year's Eve, 1983, in Great Neck, New York. And there was like a whole crew of guys from my class of '85 who loved Metallica and Slayer, obviously, and stuff. But and they knew Hetfield. Those guys, they would hang backstage.
Oh,
with
yeah.
them. And there was a whole Central North Jersey fan base that was really hardcore for them.
Yeah, Metallica's history, and the reason why, John, is they are Bay Area. But the thing about it was when they were signed in '83. They were signed by a label that was based in New Jersey, a tiny record label. When I say label, I use the term loosely, but I worked for this label, Megaforce Records. And the label and the office was actually in the guy's house. It was in the garage. And, and he ran a flea market.
Garage bands is a garage label.
There you go. Yeah. And he ran a flea market. and he had a flea market record store. And then he was the first guy who put out the first 2 Metallica records. So he bought them here from the West Coast, and a lot of their gigging and a lot of their origins and the recording of their first record happened in upstate New York. So they were very much associated with this scene when they first started out.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. People were way into that.
That's
man.
mind-boggling.
When they were on the fringe.
I think East Bay. When I think Metallica, I think East Bay.
That's where they're from, and they're still, obviously, that's still home turf for them.
Yeah.
But their origins of breaking into music was New York, New Jersey, for sure. And it's funny because my story with them is very tied in because I started in radio right out of high school. I graduated in 82. I started my first radio show, which was a metal show, in 83. And one of the things that happened was this guy, Johnny Z, who discovered Metallica and started Megaforce, he came up to my radio station that I was working on as a kid, and I'm doing this metal show, and he knocks on the door because it was like in this house on Route 10.
Yeah,
he knocks on the door, and I go to the door, and I'm like, what's this guy doing at the door? It's like, midnight or whatever. I'm like, why is the guy I buy records from in the flea market at the door of my radio station? And he walks in, and he's like, he has a bag in his hand. He goes, listen, man, hate to do this to you when you're on the air, but he said, I've got this band that no one will play on the radio. They don't know what to do with this thing. And will you help me out and play it? And I never heard of Metallica before. And he pulls out the first Metallica record.
Which was what? Ride the Lightning?
Kill 'Em All.
Kill 'Em All.
The sledgehammer with the blood on the cover.
Kill 'Em All.
So he comes in and I said, sure. I said, you know what? What the hell? I'll take a chance. And I played the record. And that night he said to me, you're the first guy to play this on the East Coast. He said, if I can ever get this band going, I'm going to hire you to work for my record company. I'm like, yeah, sure. All right, go ahead and leave. Sure enough, a couple years later, Metallica blows up, and good to his word, he hired me. And here I am thinking at 23, I'm getting this big record label job. He gives me the address. So here's the office. I pull up. It's a residential area. I'm like looking around. My office was a phone extension on the carpet next to his kid's crib in the living room. I mean, that's how I started in the business.
Well, I'll tell you a story. At 23, that's what happens. But did you like Metallica from the first time you heard them, or was it an acquired taste for you?
Artie, I wish I could say, and I could be cool enough to say, I heard the future that night. Right. Oh my God!
Right, you didn't.
I didn't know what I heard.
Kill 'Em All. Is that?
I heard noise to me initially.
Yeah, it was.
Because
they were
super
real
extreme.
On the fringe, loud, just metal.
Remember, you got to go back 30 years. Now you hear their music in sporting events, stadiums, whatever. They're huge.
I mean, Enter Sandman is like a pop top 40 song.
No, but Kill 'Em All. What songs are? Is For Whom the Bell Tolls on?
No, that would have been the next record. The biggest stuff on. Kill 'Em All, the most mainstreamish song would probably be Seek and Destroy, if you know that song.
That's one of my favorites of all time.
That's first album.
But it's mostly just like all those guys, and I was real friendly with all those guys, but they were just much hipper than me musically. They just knew about it. They were, and it was also like, like a lot of the black kids were way into early hip hop, and a lot of the hardcore white kids were early metal, and that's what these kids were. And they would, the early first Walkmans and stuff. They would just Metallica Slayer was like, and again, songs like they play now are literally like a top 40 song you hear on Z100 compared to those first couple records.
It's amazing how time changes the perception of music because you go back to 83 and this stuff was dangerous and crazy, and you had to be a lunatic to listen to it. And now, as you said,
parents were scared to death.
And now, as you said, Artie, I mean, this stuff is played all the time. You hear it all the time. It's changed, and things got more extreme.
Yankee Stadium 2 days ago.
I know, playing for Rivera. I know. It's amazing how the perception of this stuff changes. But back in 83, when I started in radio, my radio show this year is 30 years old. It started because of this music, and no one knew what to do with it. And I said, let me do a show dealing with it. I didn't think at 49 I'd still be doing that show, but I'm happy I am.
But it keeps you young, and it's how you make a living. There's nothing better than doing something you love. It keeps you young and making a living. Who cares?
And then that tied into doing that metal show, which, my TV stuff led off of the radio stuff. And now I'm, on TV with my two of my best buddies talking about rock music.
Now, here we go. Let's talk about that. I've told all you guys separately, you, Don, and Jimmy Florentine from that metal show, that it's one of my favorite shows on TV because it's just, I love that you guys treat, the drummer from the the Scorpions as if he's Mick Jagger. And it's like, I love watching it. It's great. And I think all you guys, I respect all you guys. I think Don and Jim are funny. Jimmy's one of my favorite comics. And I respect your knowledge. And you guys are great on the show. And so how did that get about? Like it's great that that's on TV. It's probably hard to keep it on the air.
Oh my God!
You know, like, and
I could do 3 books on that alone.
How did it start, and how's it going?
Well, my history with VH1 Classic, which a lot of people don't know, I've actually been a host on that channel for 12 years.
Right.
I started on VH1 Classic. I started in 2002. It was a much smaller channel. It was in a lot less homes, but I was a VJ, interview guy. Sure. I was like the fat Alan Hunter or whatever, doing classic intro and videos.
Alan Funter.
Yeah, intro and videos and interviewing bands. And I did every genre of music. I have the tapes. I interviewed one day Gloria Gaynor. I interviewed one day, Men at Work. One day Hall & Oates, one day Black Sabbath.
Now, was that torture for you, or you were a fan of great pop music where you could deal with it?
You know what? I grew up working in a record store, so I have an appreciation of all kind of music. I'm not going to tell you I ran around playing I Will Survive in my Gloria Gaynor, but I respected it. And as anybody can know talking to me, I can talk to anybody about anything.
Right.
So I had no problem doing it. I actually liked it. I interviewed Mellencamp, major interviews. I went to Carly Simon's house and sat in her house in Martha's Vineyard. She strummed You're So Vain to me on acoustic guitar.
Did you ask her who it was about?
She wouldn't tell me. She won't tell anybody. So I did all this stuff. I was working for VH1 Classic while doing a metal show on the side. And the interviews, and the one problem I had about the things back then is it was very rigid and scripted. It was like you got a blue piece of paper like that, and you had to read it exactly how they wrote it. Like, you're talking to somebody, and I'm like, Artie, tell me about your book coming up. No, cut. I want you to say, Artie, reveal something about your new book.
That's scripted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was, listen, I just was happy to be on, and he was putting me on TV, so I went with it and did what I had to do. Yeah. No teleprompter. I had to memorize 50 scripts a day, every week. I mean, it was heavy-duty stuff for me, but I did it. But all the time I was doing it, I was in the exec's ear saying, turn me loose. Let me do my thing. Let me talk how I want to talk. Let me have the people on I want to have on. Let me mix it up a little bit. Let's do something. No. And then in 2006, they blew up the channel. They gutted it. They let everybody go. And they got rid of all the hosts and everything. Closed the studio. We had our own studio here in New York. They closed it. And then they had no production for about a year and a half, just running old videos. And that's when I really started working them. I said, you got to put something on the damn channel. Yeah. And I said, let me pitch this idea. So I kept pushing this idea. And finally, we got to a point where they said, okay, my initial pitch was to do a show kind of like Inside the Actors Studio, but for music. Right. Much more of a one-on-one interview. Idea, yeah. I still would like to do that, a one-on-one in-depth interview with a live audience. That's where the live audience in the show I have now came in.
Yeah, and you're right. That's still a void. In-depth, you could do that stuff.
I still want to do it. Yeah. So DirecTV, if you're watching, no.
What an amazing idea.
You go, like he would go movie by movie, you go album by album, video by album, and get into it.
That's perfect for
no one's done it.
Right.
All kinds of music, do the whole thing. But VH1 was like, we don't want anything, A, that serious, and B, we don't want you doing this by yourself. We want somebody in there with you to mix it up who would be ball busters.
Okay.
Immediately, my head...
Hence Florentine and James.
Boom.
Right, yeah.
Now, these guys had been friends. They used to always come in between comedy gigs and sit in on my radio show. And I had chemistry with them. I also knew that in addition to being ball busters, they also, like me, are truly into this music.
They're hardcore fans.
Truly into it.
They're not posers, as we say.
Yeah, exactly. Not guys just want to get on TV, that they really live and breathe it like I did. We're all from Jersey. We all grew up into this stuff. And I brought them in, introduced them to the network. We had a meeting, we had a pilot, and here we are 5 years, 100 episodes later, still doing it. And we hope to do new ones in the fall, but it's been amazing.
You're not taping right now, you're going to start doing new ones.
No, and we've shot the show in Los Angeles for the last 3-4 years because so many of the artists live there. It just became easier to get talent in the music world.
Right.
But we actually are hearing some rumblings that they may want to move us back to doing it in New York.
Oh, no kidding.
And maybe on a weekly basis where we do it on a more regular basis, because the biggest problem, your budget for that kitchen over there is more than we have for a season.
I'm sure this is. I mean, DirecTV. Talk about it. You want to pitch a show? Get DirecTV to do it. They are amazing.
Artie, we're not in high def.
Really?
We're not in. The channel's not in HD. It's 2013. That's like making an album on 8-track.
Yeah.
We're not in HD. We're Wayne's World, Artie.
You don't have a kitchen?
We're Wayne's World.
You don't have pull-out Murphy beds with flat screens?
I mean, listen, I'm not. I mean, I'd be nothing without that. Without VH1 Classic, and I have it a lot.
Oh, sure.
I'm half joking, but some people say the charm of the show is how lo-fi it is.
Right.
But it's a little too much
You're
charm.
getting too charming.
Too charming.
I mean, you don't have an English phone booth? I mean,
I was here the first time I saw the studio. That band I put together, Winery Dogs.
Right.
I walked in. I said to you right out of my mouth. I go, Artie, I'm jealous as all hell. This is insane.
Every radio guy or commentator radio that walks in here gets jealous, and I love it. But yeah, DirecTV is the place to work for, brother.
Clearly.
They take care of you.
Clearly.
They bought this for me. I don't know how to use it. They bought this thing.
What is that, an iPad?
It's a mini iPad. They want it in front of me at all times, so I look kind of hip.
I've got one, and I don't know what to do with it either.
I'm Googling something right now. I just Googled Google.
You know what sucks? You know what sucks about all this iPad stuff?
Yeah.
I got 1,000 DVDs, and I want to go on a plane and watch it. You can't load anything into it.
You have to
rebuy everything.
It has to You got to rebuy it.
I'm like an old man.
It's a scam.
I take my old clunky DVD player out. I prop up the screen. I don't care.
Dude, you're right. It's a scam. It's just the way that you got to rebuy it.
I'm like, I'm going on a long flight. I want to watch The Godfather. I bring my DVD. It's like people look at you, get crazy. You pull out a DVD now. It's like pulling out a reel-to-reel.
You're right.
Like opening a can of film. What are you doing?
It's like pulling out a cannon and firing cannonballs.
You can just go to Netflix. I mean, just download the app.
Well, that's the other thing too. But
open it.
But you can only stream that though. You can't rip it on. You can't download it because if you're on a plane, you can't watch it without a signal.
You can't. Oh, that's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Artie said, it's a scam.
You can download it beforehand.
It's a scam. This guy's been on hold for a while. I want to hear This is Cal watching on the website or listening in Cali. Cal and Cali. What's up, man? Are you there? He's been on a while, maybe.
He fell asleep.
Cal, listening?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, what's up, buddy?
How's it going?
What's up?
Nothing. I just wanted to see if you have ever told the story or remember. I work with Adam Small. You know Adam Small, right?
Sure. Adam helped create for TV, Mad TV, my old boss.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So he was telling me that you had some neighbors apparently that were like really annoying and loud or something and constantly getting on your nerves, and that you, as kind of revenge on them, recorded that song "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes."
Oh no! Okay, this is a you want to talk about torturing somebody? No, the story is Adam. It's probably like the phone game here. It got changed over and over.
Okay.
Another guy that I was on Mad TV with, David Herman, unbelievably talented guy, and one of my best friends on the show. David had a friend who had these neighbors. He lived in one of these condos where the walls were paper thin, and the neighbors were always arguing and annoyed the hell out of him. So he went on a trip for 3 weeks, and he got into a big fight with them, and he couldn't stand them. So this kid was a sound guy, he was a sound engineer. So before he left on a 3-week trip, he recorded on a reel-to-reel, so it was on a loop. The part of the song "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes" by Crosby, Stills, Nash, just the part where it goes left it on a reel going constantly, just on a reel, and just went away for 3 weeks, right up to where their bedroom would be, and you could hear people whispering like He goes, when he got back, the cops had been called. They were tearing through like an insane asylum. They slowly started going crazy. Yeah. They tore through the wall, and the cops were like a lawsuit. And the guy was moving anyway. Could you imagine trying to go to sleep with it? Shut that off!
Dude, yeah, I may have gotten some of the facts incorrect, but yeah, he sent me the actual track, and it's like 8 minutes long. Just the beginning of over and over and over.
Yeah, that's David Herman's story.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right, well, that was it.
thank you. That's I wanted to know what you meant by a story. Yeah, that would officially drive me crazy. You follow sports, right, Ed? I mean, on some level,
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm just dying about our Giants, man. I don't know what the heck that was yesterday.
What is going on?
I don't know. And I'm really worried, man, because I'm looking at the schedule, and I don't know where the first win's coming from.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that. We got to take a break. Come back and talk. Unfortunately, we'll talk some Giants. But again,
boy.
Eddie Trunk is here, my pal. He's got a new book out, Eddie Trunk's Essential Hard Rock and Heavy Metal Volume 2. Pick it up. You'll love it. It's got a forward by Slash. So this is legit, and we'll be back with more of Eddie after these words.
The Artie Lange Show, weeknights on Audience, only on DirecTV.